Hi, welcome to episode number 48 of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. I'm Matt Baney, managing editor of the Tribune, and I'm joined today by Mary Stone, editor of the Inland 360, and Jeanne DePaul, one of our editors with numerous hats she wears. We're here to talk about Breakheart Pass, a movie from 50 years ago that no one remembers, except for our area here, and we remember it because it was filmed here. There have been other movies filmed here, but it's the most north central Idaho movie there could be. And this happens to be the 50th anniversary of both when the film was filmed and when it was officially released. So we thought a good time to talk about it. We have a nice series of stories coming up in Sunday's paper, all about Breakheart Pass and its tie to the area. So let's start by first talking about this film, a Western movie based on a book. And we've all watched it. We went back and rewatched it in Jeannie's case. And I guess let's start with Jeannie. What's your impression of this movie?
It is not the world's best movie, but it's also not the world's worst. I enjoyed it. I've watched it twice now. I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't watch it until just recently. My late husband often talked about when they were filming here because he was living here at the time and he talked it up a lot. But in those days, it wasn't available to stream or anything like that. So I finally watched the free version with commercials on Tubi, and I enjoyed it. I love westerns, so I got to put that caveat out there. But I enjoyed it enough to watch it twice.
And interesting note for everybody watching, Breakheart Pass, yes, is available for free on Tubi. So if you want to see it for yourself, just go to Tubi and dial it up, and you just have to watch the commercials. Mary, how about you? What did you think of the film?
I think Jeannie's preface of it's not the best, not the worst. That's probably my take. I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd heard about it over the years because, like you said, if you live here, you hear about it because of it being filmed here. And I guess I knew there were trains. I knew there were scenes on the trestles. I think my dad mentioned that sometimes, like we were driving up, to the Camas Prairie. The movie had some pacing issues, and I think we talked about earlier when we were chatting about it. There were some things that could have been clearer. Like they didn't need to be quite as mysterious about certain things as they were because it just kind of was a kind of a kind of thing. But really, um, so cool to see those trestles, and the countryside here that we're so familiar with was really front and center throughout the film.
And so Breakheart Pass was filmed in the area. The crew came here in early February 1975 and stayed here until mid-April 1975, filming during that time. And it was filmed in a few spots. It was filmed right at Arrow, which is, people might know, that's where the bridge goes across the Clearwater. And then it was filmed on the train trestles heading up to the Camas Prairie. And it was also filmed between headquarters and Pierce. It basically, the Arrow set, it's called Myrtle City in the movie, which is kind of interesting. The real Myrtle is a little further down the river. And then really the rest of the movie is on the train tracks. The whole time the train's moving down the tracks and the action's going on. It is a Western. They don't make it super clear in the movie, but it's supposed to be in Nevada. The plot, maybe you guys can help me. This train has a bunch of soldiers on it. They're going to this Fort Humboldt. It's sort of a secret mission, and they find out that, oh, there's a diphtheria epidemic at the fort. The soldiers are being brought there to replace the ones who have died in the diphtheria epidemic. And there's all sorts of characters on board. Charles Bronson is the lead in the movie. He's introduced as a outlaw. He's wanted for murder and arson. He ends up on the train, seemingly by happenstance. As the train's rolling down the tracks to the fort, more and more people die in mysterious ways or seemingly by accident. And it starts to become clear that there's some sort of conspiracy going on. and Charles Bronson is getting to the bottom of it.
And the governor is on the train,
The governor.
which I think is kind of
Right.
amazing. He's the governor.
And
Right.
and it turns out the governor's part of the conspiracy.
Very bad man.
Yeah.
And the
And
governor's girlfriend is played by Charles Bronson's wife, Jill Ireland.
his
Yes.
wife in real life.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Which-
yeah, but
But
he's
she's
the
not bad. She's
right.
good.
Yeah, she didn't realize the governor was such a. She's not in on the conspiracy.
No. So
And her-
shocking at the end when the governor's like, find him and kill him. I'm like, governor.
There's a lot of characters in the movie. Many of them are dressed in soldier, Union soldier uniforms, and so it's kind of hard to keep track of everybody. But the cast is really an amazing cast. Jeannie, talk about some of the standouts in the cast for you.
Well, for me, the big one is Ben Johnson. He's an Oscar winner. Ben Johnson is a really good actor. He was in tons of Westerns, had a very long and prolific career. Richard Crenna, he played the governor, the bad governor. Again, prolific television actor, Emmy Award winning, I think. And then Charles Durning was nominated for 2 Oscars in the 80s, both Best Supporting, didn't win, but he was in a ton of stuff. And he was great in just about everything he was in. So, and then, Charles Bronson. Big deal.
And and I'd add in Ed Lautner, who plays the colonel, who ends up being a good guy. But
Right.
I think that's the only time I've ever seen him play a good guy. He's almost always a bad guy. In the cast, also you have Joe Kapp, who played in the NFL.
Right.
You have
Right.
Archie Moore,
Archie
who
Moore, yes.
was
yes.
a boxer of renown. It's a remarkable cast, really. So
I've got to give a shout out real quick, Matt, to Rayford Barnes. He played Sergeant Bellew. I don't know how, I can't remember. I think it was Bellew. And he's the guy in charge of all the soldiers that keeps rounding them up and telling them to get on the train and off the train and so on and so forth. And during the epic train crash scene, he's trying to keep everyone together. He's trying desperately to stop the train. And he was a character actor that was in a ton of the old Westerns that I love, the old TV Westerns. And probably most famously, he played in The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. He played Ike Clanton, the dastardly Ike Clanton in that. He was a regular on that show for several years. And he was just in a ton of stuff. He was great. And when that came on, I just recognized him right off the bat. I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen him before. So yeah, the cast was epic.
I think anybody who watches this will have plenty of those moments like, where's that guy from? What's that guy from?
Right.
Like Richard Crenna, he was Rambo's commanding officer. He was in all of the Rambo movies.
Yes.
It's remarkable. So I think our recommendation is watch this for the local scenery and the cast. Maybe not the story.
Right. And Mary and I were talking recently about that train engine, and just, it's just amazing. It's an old fashioned steam engine. And, the shots of it, I was talking about one shot of it coming out of the tunnel onto the trestle, and the steam is just billowing up, around it. And it's just an amazing shot. And I think that steam engine was also a major part of the cast.
Here's my best take. I'm not sure about this, but I think most of the scenes where there's not a lot of snow, those were probably scenes filmed on the Camas Prairie, going up from like cul-de-sac up to the Camas Prairie and other parts of the Camas Prairie. And then when there's snow, my guess is that is when it was filmed between headquarters and Pierce. The Tribune had extensive coverage of the filming in 1975. And when they first got here, the filming started up in Clearwater County between headquarters and Pierce, I think to take advantage of the snow being there at the time. The latter half of the movie is in the snow, and that's where everything comes to a head at the end. We've had other movies filmed here. I think the Will Smith movie, Wild Wild West, they filmed a few scenes here. Does that sound right?
Yeah, they were also related to the trains and the trestles and things. I have never seen the movie. It was universally panned as being horrible, and maybe someday. But yeah, and that was, of course, a remake of a Western TV show that was on.
I remember at the time, Hollywood movies here, a big star, and we tried to get access. We tried to make calls, say, can we come? Can we take a picture? Can we interview somebody? And they said, hell no, we don't want you. Stay away. And I'm sure they kept out the public as well. Breakheart Pass, you could come and see it. I mean, maybe you needed to know somebody on the set. It was really easy to interact with this film production. And over the years, we've all heard these stories. People, they saw Charles Bronson, or somehow their dad worked on the production doing something. And in fact, that's our package in Sunday's paper. We'll have a lot of remembrances, folks who encountered the cast somehow. It's kind of refreshing in my eyes. It's just a whole different world. The Tribune would like phone up the motel the crew was staying and interview people. There was a charity basketball game at LCSC that involved members of the cast. They moved into the area and they lived here. They ate at the restaurants. They shopped in the grocery stores, and it's just a time capsule from another era. It's just the sort of thing that wouldn't happen nowadays. And one of the aspects of it that wouldn't happen now, Mary, you interviewed our retired photographer, Barry Coe. And Barry, as a very young man, went and shot the biggest stunt in the movie. A couple of train cars come crashing off the track and tumble down off the trestles. They're filming it, and he's taking pictures of them filming it. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, he found it, I think, pretty interesting being there, seeing how something like that is done. Normally, we just see it on the screen when it's all over, and he got to be there for the actual action. And when we were watching it, I remember someone I was watching it with said, you think that was a real train, or do you think that's like a model that they like sent down over the side? They did have a couple cars of some sort that they actually sent down off the side. So they had one shot, and that they kind of hoped it would really dramatically sort of like explode when it hit and pieces would fly everywhere. And it crashed pretty good, but it didn't do that. It didn't quite, just explode.
The stunt coordinator on the film was Yakima Canutt, Colfax's own, and he was famous. He was the guy in the John Ford film Stagecoach who did the terrifying stunt with the galloping horses pulling the stage, and that's him really doing that. If you ever get a chance to watch that scene, it's amazing. I read that this was his last film, and maybe that was something that Barry told me, that this was the last film that he worked on as stunt coordinator. And I think one thing Barry did say, Mary, was that when those cars crashed, they had kind of hoped to have some of the body, because they had some obviously fake bodies inside the cars, and because the cars in the film were supposed to be crammed with all these soldiers, and that's why someone dastardly uncoupled the train so that this would happen, and that they had hoped that some of those fake bodies would come flying out of the train cars when they crashed, but it didn't. So you just see the train cars and all the bodies are safely tucked inside, I guess.
Yeah, so I didn't really know much of anything about Yakima. I guess he got an honorary Oscar. The introduction when he got that award was, covered. It was toward the end of his career. And like you were saying, Jeannie, like his credentials, like the films that he'd worked on, I mean, they called him like, the greatest stuntman of all time. And then started talking about his, career afterward, where he was directing stunts and just how renowned he was. The stunts are pretty impressive because there wasn't any CGI, and there wasn't, another take either, because then those cars were done.
Right.
They were wrecked, and that was all. So, that part of it is pretty impressive.
That stunt and the fight on top of the train car, the moving train car, I thought were the two most impressive stunts in the film. And obviously, they were stunt men who were on top, intercut between the real actors. It was between the boxer, Archie Moore, and the main character played by what's his name, Charles Bronson. And they fought on top of the train car, and it was intercut, I'm sure, with the stunt actors doing the fighting, but it was amazing, and you could not really tell. I mean, it was easy to believe that was actually Charles Bronson and Archie Moore fighting on top of the train car. They did a really good job as it's moving, and I thought that was pretty epic too. So those were the two stunts that really stuck out in my mind. They did not make anybody fall off the trestles. Those were obviously dummies falling off the trestles, the two bodies. So I was grateful for that.
And
I thought it was kind of funny when they sent Charles Bronson, the character, they sent him over the side, go down and check the body, make sure he's dead. And he like skips down and skips back up. And I'm looking like, there's no way he would have been able to climb. That thing is, I don't know how many feet in the air. And he comes toddling up like, he's not even out of breath.
the poster for this film is great. It's sort of based on that scene, and it's Charles Bronson hanging off the train, and you don't see Archie Moore, but you see his boot seemingly about to kick Charles Bronson into the chasm below. The train crash, for all the work they went to, I thought a little disappointing. Could have been more. I'm sure, yeah, they wanted explosions and dead bodies to fly out of it, but it like you say, Mary, no CGI. I mean, this is really a train crashing. I mean, I'm sure they knew what they were doing, but there's probably about 10% they don't know what's going to happen in a stunt like that. And,
I would think maybe more than 10.
right. So,
I think Yakima should have probably wired a couple charges of dynamite inside the cars to so that when they landed, they'd really explode. But it was probably what happened was the most realistic that you could have. That's probably what really would happen if those trains came off the track.
Right, right.
Yeah. The very end, Matt, I think you're talking about how is a little anticlimactic when they are doing the dynamite, like they're setting like TNT or something to blow up the tracks. I think that there were a number of people from the Nez Perce tribe who were extras, who were the Indians in the scene, that kind of the Breakheart Pass part of it. It seemed like everybody rode up and then the track was ruined because they blew up pieces of it, and then everybody rode away, and it seemed a little confusing. Like, I don't know, like it just, it seemed like, like this is the big moment. And it was like, oh, we're there. And then like, oh, I guess the track won't go through and we can't replace it fast enough to keep the train going where we wanted it to be. So we'll just leave. So they left.
Well, I was very confused in that scene, in that part of the movie too, when they all rode up on horses, but then a bunch of them were off horses. And then when they went to attack the train, they all started running through the snow toward the train. And the people in the train, like the governor, they're all going, here they come. And I'm like, well, they're on foot. I mean, what? I still don't really understand that.
I didn't. They were after the guns. I mean, the point of it, right, is that there was no diphtheria outbreak, and they were thieving all these arms, right, and
right.
I think the deal was the Indians were going to get the weapons on board. They were going to get the guns and the dynamite, and then the conspirators, the governor and his bunch, were going to get the gold and the silver. And they had kind of worked out a partnership with the Indians to do a fake ambush and take over. But Charles Bronson foiled their plans. And
we should mention that Charles Bronson was in the Secret Service. He was a really good guy.
And that reveal that he's in the Secret Service, that comes awfully late in the movie. I think it comes with about 20 minutes left. He's like, I'm in the Secret Service, by the way.
Right. They kept alluding that there was something more about him. Like Jill Ireland looked at him and, her sort of sultry way and said, who are you? And then, I'm
your husband.
And
no, wait a minute.
Yeah. I'm this ruggedly, sort of handsome guy who's maybe a murderer and an arsonist and also a doctor. He was supposed to be a doctor. That's why they had him go down and look at the people who fell. He was a doctor, kind of, and but mysterious. I think there were other people who asked him who he really was. So we were supposed to know that he probably wasn't who they said he was at the beginning. But you're right, they didn't tell us who he actually was. And so I think, the intrigue part of it, I can see how that was supposed to be really engaging, right? That was, like, ooh, look what we've done. But it was more or less just kind of long, arriving and then a little confusing. I don't know.
It maybe it worked better in the book. On screen, it didn't quite translate on screen.
Yes, maybe I'll check out the source material someday. You never know.
I guess I didn't even realize I got to get going on my reportage here, but I didn't really realize that it was a book. That does make some
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
I hope in the book that, and I wish, and see, I can't even remember what her name was in the movie, but Jill Ireland's character in the movie, as I think I discussed with maybe one or both of you, like they kind of either kind of forgot about her, or they just had too much and they had to, edit portions of her uh appearances out, because there's a really long gap where all this stuff is happening and people are dying and falling off of trains and sneaking about, and we never check in with her. She's just on the train in her compartment. I don't know, just
She's hiding. She's trying not to get murdered and kidnapped, Mary.
I
Cut her some
guess.
slack. I
I
mean, come on.
suppose, but I
And then
mean,
almost
it
at
just,
the end, she does. The bad guy grabs her, and the governor
yes,
has to come to her rescue. The one good thing he did, he came to her rescue and shot the bad guy. So, I mean, he wasn't all bad, the governor.
yeah, he was
He did
mostly
save her
bad.
life.
Even that was a little confusing.
Yeah, it didn't seem to have occurred to him that she would A, be in danger, which should have been obvious, or B, that she wouldn't have been down with his whole plan. Like maybe he just thought when he told her what was up, she'd be on his side. I don't know. But if no, she, the heart of gold, and
Especially because her dad
The
was
bright
a
side.
commander of an army post. I mean, yeah, I don't understand why the governor thought that she'd be up for all this badness.
no, she was not. She wasn't there
No,
for it. But
she
she did
wasn't.
have eyes for the Charles Bronson character throughout.
Oh,
So
come on. Of course she did.
And it's kind of maybe they just said, "Oh, let's just wrap it up." But isn't it interesting at the end? Uh, yeah, like you said, anticlimactic, Mary. Uh, Jill Ireland's father arrives and she embraces him, and Charles Bronson just sort of walks away. Um, why didn't they end up together?
They were, my theory is, I mean, it was almost like, yeah, he turns and walks toward the camera and then it's frozen. Were they hoping to make more films about,
No.
Charles Bronson, John Deacon, the Secret Service guy?
That's
I
what his
mean, was
name
that
was,
what
Deacon.
was that? Yeah, John Deacon, I think was his name.
Yeah.
It certainly had an ending that, okay, we can see what he's going to be into next and take it from there. You never knew. And if the film had done well, maybe that would have happened. But that ending, Matt, was a satisfying ending for me. I love when he rides up on his horse, and he is, we must mention, a local Lewiston guy, Irv Failing,
Who played
and
her dad. Yeah.
yeah, who played her dad. He had no lines. I thought that was kind of cool. Gets to hug Jill Ireland twice at the end, so good for him.
Here's probably the worst aspect of the movie: the blood effects. It's not even ketchup; some sort of paint or something.
It's really bright and unnatural. It did not look good. Did not look legit at all. I will say one thing that the film got right, and I don't know what it is about me that I always look for this in old TV westerns, old western movies, is the playing cards. Because playing cards in the olden days only had the pips on the cards. They didn't have numbers. So they did get that right at the beginning of the film in Myrtle City.
Another character in this film, non-human, alongside, the train and the engine, was the fur coat that Charles Bronson was wearing in the Myrtle City scene. When we first see him, Barry has a picture of him, which hopefully we're running, wearing that coat. Holy heck, man. That was a whole thing. And then it was gone. Yeah, but then he didn't have it anymore on the train in the snow.
The scenery was a big part of it for me. And I think a lot of people watching this, there's people around here, I'm sure, that have driven those areas thousands and thousands of times between here and the Camas Prairie. And so when they're in the scenes, I found myself spending just a lot of time looking at the background, those hills. Anybody who lives around here or has lived around here would look at those and just see it's so familiar. And I think that's one of the things I loved about it the most, just seeing the hillsides.
And again, in Sunday's paper, we'll have a lot of anecdotes from folks who encountered the crew and even were involved in the movie. I had a lot of fun looking at the Tribune archives from the 3 months that the crew was here making the movie. There was almost a Breakheart Pass story in the paper every day. And it was just the most random things. There was one item about a a couple of crew members had their hotel rooms broken into and had stuff stolen out of them. And there was an incident where two of the crew members had a little too much to drink one evening, and they decided to get on the statue of the horse and the Native American that's at the courthouse. And we somehow, I'm not exactly sure how, the Tribune had a photo of them on the horse, and we ran it in the paper.
Wow.
And a few days later, the production manager wrote a letter in saying, "We're very sorry. The guys were just blowing off some steam. It won't happen again." Anyway, it's just remarkable how it was just people. It was just ingrained here in the community. The movie officially debuted in Europe in late 1975, but the world premiere, as it was billed, was here at the Liberty Theater, and some of the cast came back for that. There were big searchlights in front of the Liberty. It was a big event. Cecil Andrus came here for it.
Wow.
In fact, there's even one of the stories from that. Cecil Andrus said, "Well, this is great. Perhaps this is the beginning of major Hollywood productions in Idaho." Didn't quite come to pass, but but it certainly it's anyway. I've had a lot of fun looking back at this and hearing people's stories. It's and you know, there's just so many out there, just so many. You know, it's not even people. There were some people who got involved in the production, but as I mentioned, some people just encountered these folks out in the community. You'd go out to eat, and here's one of them we got here. Someone went out to eat, and Charles Bronson and an Indian guy were having lunch in the booth next to them, and they had on their period clothes too.
Oh, wow.
They walked off the set and said, "Well, we want to go to Little Sambo's and have lunch there." So that's where they were.
The charity basketball game held. Where was that at?
It was at the old LCSC Warrior Gym.
Oh, the Warrior Dome.
Yeah, and it was members of the cast, and including they had Joe Cap, who was maybe still an active NFL player, yeah, and against area high school coaches. And in fact, I think the coverage of it said that the Breakheart Pass crew was ahead most of the game, but somehow there were some shenanigans at the end, and the coaches ended up winning. So anyway, I don't remember Will Smith being in a charity basketball game when he was here to film anything, right?
No, I don't. I think that was all pretty quiet. I think
anyway, it's just
one of the things that they wanted to use as well was because in the original series, The Wild Wild West, they were they were the very first Secret Service agents. They traveled the country on their own private train. And so that was why I think they wanted to come here and use some of the scenes, the trestles and all those things still here. They wanted to use those as well for that movie, but I don't know. We don't know as much information about that film because it was not accessible like this one was.
Anybody have anything else to say about Breakheart Pass, the mediocre 1975 movie?
I would say it was just a little notch above mediocre. Give it some more credit than that.
Yeah.
My first 2 or 3 attempts to watch it, I fell asleep. But then I made it all the way. Yeah, I made it all the way through last night, and I was like, you know what? I've seen worse movies. And of course, for folks like us who live around here, it's great to watch from that regard, since you can see the scenery, and then just the cast is just remarkable too. So
one thing I want to make a point of is to go back and read some reviews if there's any available online. I would like to see what the AP said. I'd like to see what maybe the New York Times. Probably not great.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for chatting about Breakheart Pass. That was fun. And thank you for watching this episode of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. We'll be back again next week with another new one. And until then, have a great day. Thanks.